Hey guys, this is Mark Saint for Brazil Unsubtitled, your channel to get to know all you ever wanted to know about Brazil, but in English. I have a quite tricky question for you guys today. Are we or are we not Latin Americans after all? Are Brazilians considered Latin Americans or we're not? Well, this is a question that generates a lot of passion and a lot of discussion, especially down the line of equator, because some might say Brazilians don't want to admit or to possess the Latin American spirit or the Latin American tradition or heritage. And this is something that has always got me thinking. Are we really like that? Don't we want to be like our neighbors in Latin America, in South America? Look, I just said Latin America, because it's a term that is vastly used nowadays. Well, I came across an article from Professor Dilma Castelo Branco Diniz. She's a professor at the University of Minas Gerais, UFMG. She's a literature professor, and she has an article that I found to be very amusing. The name is The Concept of Latin America, a French Vision, or O Conceito de América Latina, uma visão francesa. In this article, she discusses that before we say whether Brazilians are or are not Latins or Latinos, we need to try to understand the concept of the word Latin, first of all. The way that the word is used universally, it means all the people from Latin descendancy, right? But it's not very clear what this Latin means. Is this a geographical concept? Because if it's geographical, they consider to be South America and Central America together, right? If that's correct, what happens to Mexico? Are Mexicans Latinos? For most Americans and other peoples in the world, the Mexicans are Latinos, right? But they are located in North America. And what happens to Suriname, or to the English Guiana, and to Belize? These three countries are part of the Central and South America. However, in English Guiana and Belize, English is spoken. And in Suriname, the Dutch is spoken, because they were colonized by the Dutch. So should they be considered Latinos as well? That's the problem of the concept that Professor Dilma Castelo Branco Diniz discusses in her article. If the term is concerned to the language, because a lot of people say, no, but it's a Latin language. Spanish, in most countries of South America, is spoken, and in Brazil, the Portuguese. So these are Romantic languages. Thus, Brazil is a Latin country because they speak Portuguese, which is a Latin language. Okay, so what happens to Quebec? Quebec is a province in Canada. Canada is a North American country. So are the people from Quebec considered to be Latinos? So that's the problem that Professor Dilma discusses in her article. The term is flawed, completely flawed, and because of that, it's difficult to define, right? There is a state here in Brazil called Santa Catarina. It's located in the south of the country, and Santa Catarina was colonized by the German. A vast majority of the population has German descendancy. There are small cities in Santa Catarina where German is spoken. It's not Portuguese. So what do we say about these people? Are they Latin Americans because they live in Brazil? So the core of the thing is on the nomenclature, the creation of the name Latin. When the word was first created, it was created in Europe on the second half of the 19th century, more specifically in France, okay? And the origin of the term, one of the first documentations, the first documentation for the word, the first usage for the word came with Charles Calvo. Charles Calvo was some sort of ambassador, or he held a good position in France. He was part of scientific study, French scientific study groups, and he was also a representative of Paraguay inside France during the empire of Napoleon III. So when Charles Calvo wrote to the emperor about Latin America, about America, South America, or Latin America specifically, he referred to the part that opposed the Anglo-Saxon America. So basically the term comes from this, to refer to those countries that were not colonized by the British, like the United States and Canada, for example. So Latin America had a completely different connotation compared to today. Nowadays, to be a Latino is to be of Spanish descendants, or to be Hispanic Americans. So if you consider that, you cannot consider Brazilians as Latinos, because we didn't have a Spanish colonization. We don't speak Spanish, guys.
What? No.
That's something a lot of people say, oh, Spanish is spoken in Brazil. No, it's not. My first language is Portuguese. We were colonized by the Portuguese. Even the colonization in Brazil was completely different from the colonization that happened in the other countries in South America. So I wanted to bring this article for you guys. I'm going to leave the name right here, the name of the professor. Unfortunately, I think the article is just in Portuguese, but it's a wonderful enlightenment to the discussion, right? To say that, sorry, Brazilians are not Latinos. In my opinion, not the way that is put nowadays. And it's not because we don't like to be similar to the others. It's just because you can't push something that doesn't belong to us, right? I think the Latin culture is beautiful when it comes to the mix of the Spanish and the Portuguese. But I wanted to show you through this video that the culture in Brazil has nothing to do with the Latino culture, the way that is presented, right? We are more influenced by the North American and the European cultures. It's very, very difficult to find. It's hard to find Spanish songs being played in Brazil. I'm not going to judge and say whether this is good or not. I'm not making any judgments here. I'm just presenting to you guys the reality about our culture. We have some exceptions of Spanish songs being played, but most artists that are popular in South America and Central America are not even known in Brazil, and vice versa. There are a lot of Brazilian artists that are not known in South America. So there's this division, this isolation when it comes to culture, which is a shame, right? I think the world needs to be more together. But that's it, guys. We don't consider ourselves Latinos. I know when Brazilians travel to the United States, Americans tend to say that Brazilians are Latinos, but no, we're not. It's simply because the term is flawed. What are you talking about? Geography, I prove that it doesn't make sense. Language, I prove that it doesn't make sense. So We are South Americans. That's what we have to say. Well, more and more I'll bring you videos like this, videos bringing aspects of our culture and discussions that are popular. So if you like this video, please click on the like button. Are you a subscriber to the channel? If you're not, also, and you want it, click on the subscribe button and click on the bell button to activate notifications about the channel. Thank you very much. This is Mark Saint, and see you next time.